Hey, it's Cody. This is a companion video to another video that I did a couple months ago. I actually intended for this video to come out much closer to the time in which the first one had come out. The last one that I did was decks with keywords that I don't like. I don't remember exactly what I titled it. But this one is decks with keywords that I do like. So yeah, I've got, what, 9, 10? I don't know, whatever. I guess we'll see. Okay, I've got some oracles, and I have two tarot decks, so without further ado. The first deck that I have that I like the keyword, okay, well, not the keywords. This is the keyword situation on this deck, okay? This is Soul Cards by Deborah Koff. I actually don't know. There are two... There's like a Soul Cards too. This is only the number one. I don't have the second one. I do at some point plan on getting it. Now, if you have not seen this deck before, you're in for a treat. This deck, if you look at it, does not have any keywords of any kind. There's no numbering, no titles, there's nothing differentiating these cards from one another, aside from obviously the artwork. It comes with a little mini guidebook, but it's really just telling you just some kind of basic information on the artists and stuff, but mostly simply that there are no keywords on this deck. I think that I have mentioned before how I actually wish that I had gotten this deck much earlier in my cartomancy practice, because I think this made me, well, I say I think, this did make me grow so much using this. I don't use this quite as much as I did for a while. But this just builds self-trust, in a way that I wish I had encountered sooner. And now I'm a lot quicker to just, read something intuitively or look at the artwork. I mean, obviously the artwork has to have a certain amount of depth and, like, ways to interpret it. Do you know what I mean? It can't just be, like, I don't want to be mean about any decks, but there are just decks that don't have the style of art where you could really interpret something for it. You know what I mean? It's just whatever the title or the keyword is. Like, look at this one, for example. This is a beautiful card. We have looks like a person, but these are like leaf impressions, right? The color of the leaf impressions kind of makes me think of maybe fall, maybe blood. Like, was this an attack? Did this person witness an attack, you know, of like something bad happening to a tree and it's like blood stamped on it from it? Or maybe this is more like a meditation with trees. Is the person sort of turning into a tree? Or like, you know how you could just kind of look at this and get a whole bunch of things out of it? I think this deck is just so beautiful, not only just in the artwork, but in the way that you were expected to use it. Yeah. So this was Soul Cards. Oops, I threw my box as if I wasn't going to need it again. Okay. Also, sorry if this pissed anyone off. Honestly, if I clicked on a video that was like, decks with keywords that I like, and then the first deck they pulled out was one that didn't have any keywords, that would piss me off. So, if you're still here, sorry. Okay, the next one that I have, this is just part of what I have of it. This is the Memento Mori Oracle, by Black and the Moon. Now, this deck, I'm not sure if you can see it here. The way this deck works is it's mostly like nouns, right? These are items or objects, like a spider, a casket screw. Well, okay, people, places, and things. I don't know. Okay, whatever. The point is, I really like the way that this deck, okay, some of the initial cards, I don't remember how many cards a Lenormand deck actually has, but it's sort of a themed Lenormand deck within, like, the original base deck, but then there's a bunch of additional Oracle cards, too. So, like, bats, I think, is birds. I don't actually remember, because I don't use it like that, and, I mean, you don't have to, so. But I like that these are just objects, and they don't really give you anything else. Sometimes that pisses me off about decks, that I want them to give me a little more information, or I feel like it's too vague or something. The way that this works, like a door knocker, you know, it's kind of like a Not necessarily word association. Maybe. You know, what does this thing make you think of? And you get some weird readings, but you get readings that set this deck apart from other decks, if that makes sense. Like a labyrinth. I mean, obviously you could do big guidebook write-ups, but okay, like Moth. This deck really encourages you to just use your own associations with this thing. You know, like, I feel like I've run into most of the things that are in this deck. Moths, weather vanes, a ring. I mean, I don't know about an amputation saw specifically. I've run into saws. I own some of them. The addition of the word amputation sort of gives it a different connotation, right? That your brain kind of leads that way, you know? A wishbone, a shell, a candle. I think this deck is so interesting, and it almost feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. Yeah. I love this deck. This deck is humongous. If you get all the expansion packs and things, and the Patreon cards, if you're part of the Black and the Moon Patreon, then you get cards, additional cards that go in this deck every once in a while and stuff. The actual, like, the whole deck, I don't think I even have all of it, but I have most of it. I mean, that thing is, like, so thick I can't even grab it. It's unwieldy. I need to go through it, and kind of curate it some, but I really don't know where to begin. Okay. The next deck is actually quite different. This is Forest Fae by Nadia Turner. Now this is a little mini deck. What's it by? It's by Rockpool. Now most of these little mini decks are just like only quotes or something. This one actually has Nadia Turner's artwork. I think she did a B tarot more recently that I was excited for because I thought it was going to be more like... I thought it was going to be more muted colors the way this one is. It turns out it was not. It was very brightly colored and I was unhappy to even see the photos of it, so I did not end up getting it. Okay, I like this deck. Now, these aren't just keywords, right? We've got the Spirit Familiar, but we've also got, like, a little phrase, seek loving connections and cherish friendships. And then some cool-ass artwork. I will admit, for me personally, I have to be in the right mood to use this deck. Sometimes it's a little cutesy for me. But generally in the spring or the summer, earlier summer maybe, I pull this deck out quite a bit. To the Greenwood, seek comfort and acceptance and be kind to yourself. Look how cute this guy is right here. So, I like the way that it has its title. It's got this little key phrase, but it's... Okay, I don't mean to talk shit, but I'm gonna because that's kind of just how I am. You know those... oh my god, what are they called? Those decks that are... There's gonna be 8 of them, and they're... For the Wheel of the Year, there was a Samhain one, a Yule one. Do you know what I'm talking about? And they have those little poems with the misused, like, thee and thy and stuff on them, and I can't stand it. Like, literally, I do not use those decks because of that. This deck is what I think that deck thought it was going to be, what those decks were intending to be. I mean, there's magic in beginnings to start something new. That's a little cringe to me. Oh my god, I'm being so mean to this video. I'm sorry. But, okay, this is just my personal opinion, okay? You guys can think whatever you want. The point is, yeah, I gotta be in the right mood to pull this deck out. But when I do, I enjoy it. The little write-ups, they're cute, I guess. Did I say they were cringe or corny? I don't remember what word I just used. Like, kinda, but I can live with some of that, okay? Honestly, I live with a huge amount of it, but also I think I find things corny that a lot of people don't, so... Okay, let's move on from that, because I'm digging at this point. This one is, I believe, the Roots and Wings Oracle. Yep. I really love this deck. Okay, this is the mini size, and I have 2 regrets about how I ordered this. The first one is that I should have gotten full size, but I didn't. The second issue is this, at the time that I ordered this was available in 2, like, card finishes. Rose petal or gloss. Now, I know for a fact that I hate gloss cards. I don't like things being shiny. I think that's so ugly. So I got the rose petal. This is probably, the stickiest rose petal deck. Like, rose petal finish ever. Like, these cards, they're like rubber coated or something. I don't know. It is horrific. Shuffling this deck is almost impossible. Anyway, I like these keywords. They're simple, but they're effective. And they don't just skew positive. A lot of times you'll find decks with simpler keywords will all be, or they'll be 98% positive. Sorry, I guess I could hold it so you can see it. But for this one, it's really not. And I really appreciate that. Also, this one has some in it, like strength, that are basically majors. And if I read it the same way as I would a major or not, just really depends on how I feel that day or when I'm pulling it. So sometimes I take issue with there being cards that are obviously majors from a tarot deck mixed into an oracle deck. For some reason, this one doesn't bother me. Like, sometimes things bother me or don't bother me, and I'm not really sure why. I'm sure I'll think of it in, like, 2 days. I'll be like, oh my god, that's why I think. But, like, here's the world. Like, this artwork doesn't really look like... It doesn't have the same symbolism as, like, the world in the tarot cards. But the strength one, I'm not digging that back out, because this cardstock's a pain in the ass. But it did. It had the infinity symbol over it, and I forgot what that's called. It had the lion. I'm trying to see if we can... run into another one. Okay, I guess not. Oh my god. Okay. Alright, anyway, never mind, but the point is, yeah, there's kind of majors in here. It's a little bit patchy. Like, something almost feels like it was gonna be a tarot deck at one point and then changed direction. I don't know. That doesn't make it true just because I said that. You know what I mean? I could be totally off base. Okay, I'm just rambling. Alright, the next deck that I love the keywords on, this is the Endless Oracle by Eric Mail. This deck is... it's like fantasy themed. Let's get up here. There is a guidebook with it. I've said this before when I think when I first got this deck, that I actually avoid the guidebook with this one. Just because, as someone who reads a lot of fantasy books... I kind of enjoy having my own thought process with it. You know what I mean? Like, these are kind of almost archetypal things at this point for people who, you know, watch fantasy movies or shows or read fantasy books or play fantasy games. Like The Figure by the Fire. You know that this person is going to need something. They're going to tell you something important. This could be the adventure beginning, you know? Or important information about to show up. Like, I can look at this card and just spout out all these things because I know this kind of energy that shows up, right? Here's the Mystic. So I have dipped into the guidebook, and it is very good, and it's not limiting, but I don't know why I'm being weird about the guidebook for this deck. Birds. But yeah, I love the way that this deck functions. I think I've talked extensively about this is based on like those old things called Marioramas. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They would be card decks, and they can line up next to each other, and any cards together make like a continuous scene. You know what I mean? Like, here's a butterfly visiting a pomegranate tree. So when you spread the cards out that you've drawn and put them together in that way, it really makes for some interesting combinations. Look, here we've got a knight. And you might be thinking that he's going to battle, but it looks like he's going the opposite way from the giants. Maybe they just missed each other. Maybe he's retreating, you know. So this deck is very cool, the way that it functions, and I really appreciate the way that the keywords are. I think it's simple in looking at it, but the way that it functions is complex and personal based upon your experience and... do you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I guess all decks are like that. Okay. This is the Untamed Spirit Animal Oracle. This is another deck that I like the keywords on. Sometimes I struggle with animal decks. Just because I don't tend to have... the animals in my area are a lot of times not the animals that are included in animal decks. So sometimes I don't always have associations with them. Now, this one does have a guidebook, and the guidebook is, I don't know, it's fine. It's just mid, kind of, but, like, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing stand out. But I do really like the keywords, like connection and shadow for the spider, responsibility and dedication for the bee. So, I appreciate also the black and white artwork on this deck. I don't know why animal decks feel so overwhelming to me. And when there's a bunch of colors like coming at me, like I feel like they tend to be really colorful. I don't really know why, but yeah, I do really like this deck and I appreciate the keywords. And I have gotten into the guidebook with this. This is gonna sound kind of shitty, but I've already been shitty on this video, so who cares, I guess. It didn't really tell me anything more as far as interpreting the cards than what the keywords had kind of already gotten me. If that makes sense. Hey, I know that salmons I know that salmon are like important in their life cycle and they represent a bunch of shit, but I hate seeing salmon in decks. There. I've been holding that one in for years. Okay, I have one more Oracle deck, and then I have 2 tarot decks that have keywords, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, the final Oracle deck that I have, this is the Local Honey Picture Box. I will admit I was not positive how I was going to feel about this deck when I had initially received it. Now, this was sent to me for review. And it turns out this deck is very unique. I have not run into another deck that feels the way that this one does. Honor your pace. Like, they're not necessarily keywords. They're more like key phrases. But they're very... We'll just look at some and I'll tell you here. Speak your truth. I mean, we've run into that, but honor your pace isn't necessarily one I feel like I've run into. See yourself. Like, that... I know what this means. I like the way it's depicted, though, even just, like, with the words, you know? Airing your trauma versus healing your trauma. Like, this is where this deck really shines, I think, with some of this, because there is a difference between airing your trauma versus healing your trauma, are 2 very different things. And this is a perfect way to call out, am I doing this? You know, am I doing this properly? Am I making this worse on myself? Block to awareness. Self-sacrifice is an ego trap. Like, this deck will come for you so hard. Like, sometimes it will be kind and say love is alchemy. Physical, mental, emotional, but sometimes it'll just say the most hurtful shit. Well, stop hurting yourself. Hey. Okay, it is my own thoughts doing it, but like the way that you get called out with this deck, and this isn't just it's got a little guidebook thingy in here. So yeah, I am a big fan of this deck. Forgiveness through repair. I'm not exactly sure what this is supposed to be depicting, but this is how I feel and look every single time I'm like writing in my tarot journal. I have an epiphany, like, oh my fucking god, I fucked something up. Like, I think we've all had those moments. Okay, now if I could get this back in here, I have 2 tarot decks. The first one is, I don't know if you can see with the lighting here. This is the Brady Tarot. Once again, it's winter. I don't know if you have watched any of my videos for the past winters that I've had this channel. I normally record my videos in my sunroom, and my sunroom is just subject to whatever weather is outside pretty much. So when it is winter and it's freezing, I end up having to come inside my house, and my house is just weirdly dark all the time. So you end up with weird lighting, and I'm sorry. Okay. Now, this is a tarot deck. Like, here we have the 4. This would be of cups, but I think it's horns in this deck. There's the Son of Arrows. Okay, that one did not. Oh, well, we'll look here. I just didn't talk about the keyword. And we have apathy here. Sometimes keywords on decks mess them up for me, like on tarot decks pretty specifically, just because I don't always agree with what the keywords are saying. I don't think this one really misses. Not for me. And everyone reads cards a little bit differently. You know what I mean? But for me personally, God, I don't know why I can't hold this like in the frame here. For me personally, I am happy with the keywords on the vast majority of these cards. 2 of, this roots, so that would be earth is equilibrium. Very nice. Oh my god, why am I running into so many cards that just don't have keywords when that's what I'm trying to fucking talk about? Oh my god. Oh, what the hell? Alright. Here's 10 of earth is wealth. Like, it just... Oh my god. Okay, inspiration of the Ace of Wands. Mourning in the Three of Air. Anguish for the Nine of Air. I think these keywords were so well done. Also, this deck, I think its Kickstarter just finished up for a 3rd edition. This is the 2nd edition of the Brady Tarot. I also believe that there is an Oracle deck being made. I could be wrong. No. I don't know when it is, but I do know that it's being made because I've seen the deck creator post photos of like artwork in progress, you know? Okay, so that was the Brady Tarot. Okay, now the last one is the Lucid Dreams Beginner's Tarot. Okay, with keywords. Now, I know this feels like cheating, but I have just gotten several decks that will be like, this is for beginners, it has keywords. And for a lot of them, instead of really, the keywords aren't necessarily helpful keywords, just because so many of them will skew positive, or it will just be something that's almost like, fuck, I wish that I had thought of some examples here. It will be something that's not really practical or helpful if a beginner draws a card and doesn't know what it means, okay? So we'll take a look at this. This is death. Now, it's kind of hard to see on this. We've got symbolic, death and rebirth, big changes, time to move on, transformation, transition, endings. Oh my god, look at this. Observe it. Letting go, release, and starting anew. Like, that's a lot going on there, and I think it covers most of the bases for the most part. It's also got reverse meanings. Personally, I don't even read reversal, so I would just look at both of these if I wanted to, you know? Resistance to change, inner purging, stagnation, inability to change, stuck, decay, and repeating negative patterns. So, the aesthetic of this deck might not be for everyone. I do want to say, this is, I think it's called Sand. And now, the camera here is not picking this up the best, but this is more of a pinkish. It's kind of like a tannish pink rather than a pinkish tan, if that makes sense. So, this, after I had gotten this one, they came out with one that was black, and instead of this sandy pink. And I wish I had waited until the black one had been in existence. But you get what you get. So yeah, it's not quite artwork that would be very universal. I think there's specific people that would enjoy this artwork, and then specific people that would not really be into it. I went through a phase of kind of, I don't know, maybe trying out this artwork because I had found a deck or two that worked surprisingly well for me. Most of them didn't. But I think this one actually is, I know it's weird. It's not really my aesthetic. It's mostly a really pale pink. It's got beginner keywords, so I'm surprised at the longevity this deck has had in my collection as far as its use. Like, sometimes I'll get a deck like this and I'll use it for a while and maybe I'll really love it. But then it just gets put away. You know, this, I have barely put this deck away, and that's weird. But something about this deck, I don't even normally look at the keywords. I mean, I don't need them at this point. But whenever I do go ahead and take a look at them, I'm always impressed that they did a pretty good job really getting multiple angles of the card here. So I would, recommend this for a beginner, or really anyone. I kind of wish they would come out with this in a way that it didn't have the keywords. I mean, I know it would make for weird shaped cards, but I don't know. I do wish that. Oh, Jesus. I'm not looking at them in my little viewfinder thing. I'm looking at them underneath, and I'm just like, sorry. Anyway, I'm just looking at this now. Oh my god, look at this Empress. Okay. So, those were my decks with keywords that I do like. I was trying to balance out my negativity a little bit, but actually I think I was shittier on this video than I even was on the one about decks with keywords that I didn't like. Sorry. Thanks for watching. Bye.